Our story begins with our protagonist Zhuang Wu learning to code and design on his own. He didn't have a team and single-handedly designed a game. Tiredly, he leaned back in his chair, assuring himself that in 2 more months he would be done, and his efforts would undoubtedly bring him fortune. Suddenly, his phone rang. It was Ma Chun-Chun. He answered the call and Ma demanded to know when he intended to pay his rent. He asked her for a few more days, promising that his game would earn him substantial money by then. Ma reminded him that she had been hearing this for 3 years. Only 10 people had bought his previous game, Doomsday, and the sales of P-Man were even worse as she was the only buyer. He replied, somewhat sadly, that it was simply because they lacked good taste. Ma retorted that he was the one with poor taste and warned him that if he didn't pay by tomorrow, he should prepare to be evicted. Checking his balance, he found he only had 558 RMB. The sight was frustrating, but he figured if he was thick-skinned enough, Ma wouldn't be able to do much. Resolute, he began typing again, planning to speed up his work and finish the game quickly. Suddenly, his computer shut down and a surge of numbers appeared on the screen. Messages about designing the monster's image, finalizing plots, adding more codes, and fixing bugs popped up, surprising him. Confused by what was happening and why his designs seemed alive, he received a warning that the system was overloaded. Then, his computer case crashed down, smoke billowing out. He thought with despair that his life was over, but he noticed a strange light still glowing on his computer screen. The screen displayed an interface announcing the release of a new fantasy world. Releasing platform is on Earth. The progress bar started at 15%, jumped to 30%, and soon it reached 100%. Upon completion, bright lights emanated from his computer. He tilted his head to avoid the blinding beam and his surroundings started to shake uncontrollably. Realizing it was an earthquake, he rushed to the door, flung it open, and dashed out of the building. Once outside, he was stunned to see trees erupting from the ground, crawling up the buildings. He wondered if he was dreaming because the trees looked strangely familiar. The crowd around him was panicking, trying to make sense of what was happening. Someone pointed to the sky, exclaiming about an unidentified flying monster colliding with a helicopter. The collision caused the helicopter to explode and both it and the monster plummeted to the ground. As people shouted and fled from the falling debris, a little girl was pushed over and fell to the ground. As she opened her eyes, she saw the monster hissing at her. He was stunned to see it because it was the monster he had designed. Its name was a hippogriff, with an eagle's upper body, a horse's hindquarters, and feathers as hard as steel. Its danger level was sea level, and its special ability was the ripple scream. The hippogriff stood up and screamed angrily at the people. He ran toward it, knowing it was a bad situation. The hippogriff opened its mouth while looking at a little girl. She closed her eyes in fear. Fortunately, our protagonist grabbed her in time and dragged her away while the hippogriff started to use its ripple scream. He covered the little girl's ears, knowing that he needed to, but he felt pain when he heard the scream. Suddenly, the ground shook uncontrollably. The hippogriff stopped when it heard something running towards it. When the hippogriff looked back, it saw red shining eyes coming at it. It was another furious monster. Then, it stabbed the hippogriff before it could even react. He saw this and realized that it was the monster named Unicorn Wolf. It was the overlord of the prairie, its horn sharp and strong. Also, its danger level was B level, and its ability was Lightning Strike. He slowly closed his eyes, guessing that he wouldn't have to pay the rent anymore, then collapsed. Later, he opened his eyes when he heard a beeping sound and was surprised to see that he was in a hospital. He sat up and saw the little girl he had saved. He wondered if all those things he had just seen were real. He grabbed the remote near his bed and turned on the TV in front of him. Li Xiaomeng, the reporter, announced that currently, the height of the trees was over 5,000 meters and that they were just at the tree's waist when something flew towards them. It attacked the reporter, causing the camera to turn off. In the next news segment, the reporter informed everyone that professionals had already dived down 1,000 meters into the giant hole, and that they should see what they had discovered. The camera spotted the red glaring eyes, and it attacked the cameraman, causing the camera to turn off once again. On the next channel, the reporter told everyone that it was an emergency announcement. In response to the crisis of humans, they begged the players to report their identities at the players' lobby. He wondered why they needed players, then remembered the hippogriff, unicorn wolf, sky tree, and abyssal pit. It made him wonder why they looked exactly like the settings in the new fantasy world he was creating. Suddenly, an interface popped up in front of him. It showed our protagonist's name, Zhuang Wu, that he was at level 1, and his profession was game designer NPC. Currently, he didn't have a title, his HP was 100, MP was 0, strength was 9, agility was 11, intelligence was 12, perception was 9, undistributed was 0, and a note stated that the average human had 10 attribute points. Wu wondered if the game he designed